Hi, welcome, and thanks for coming to my talk. It's called Dr. Langeskov, Smoke and Mirrors and a Piece of Cardboard, and it's about a game that me and my studio called Crows 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 made, and it's called Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, a Whirlwind Heist. It's a long title, it's a complex title, no one ever remembers it. Let's just address it as Dr. Langeskov from now on, and we're good. Here's a cool little detail, because it's all about being behind the scenes. This is what the templates look like when you do a talk at GDC. I thought that was pretty interesting. Anyway, let's go. Let's do a show of hands. Who actually played Dr. Langeskov? Nice. I love you. Who in here does 2D art at all? Photoshop and that kind of stuff? Cool. Who's having a really bad day today? Right. Who's having a really good day? Right. You people hug those other people after this. Who am I? That's a good question. This is me. My name is Dominik Johann. My Twitter is Zerstörer, which is German. You don't have to remember that, but please follow me. I'm 25 years old, and I'm the art director at Crows Crows Crows. I'm based in Germany, and I study at Hamburg University for Applied Sciences. I started out making art in Photoshop for Counter-Strike spray logos back when I was 12, so I downloaded an illegal copy and just never stopped making those spray logos, really. When I was 18, 19, I started a career in advertising and making Facebook games, and that was pretty terrible. But then I finally broke free and became a freelance illustrator, which is weird. These are a couple of pictures. That's a jam jar. It's pretty cute. The first game I made was called The Message. I made that with my friend Jeremy for a game jam called Fuck This Jam, organized by Rami, which was about making a game in a genre you hate, and we were both like, oh, these text-based games are so annoying. Let's make one that's actually really good. It got a lot of press. It was posted on Forest Ambassador, Merit Kopa's blog, which I highly recommend. Really cool games in there. And from that point on, it just started rolling. I made a game in HTML that's called Impetus, and it was about collaboratively working together to keep the game and the character in the game alive. It was about making something that only lasts 10 seconds, and this was very much an attempt at doing it as minimal as possible. There's only 3 graphic assets in this game, which is the logo, the astronaut, and a version of herself where she's only a skeleton, which is when the game died. So this game terminated itself after, I think, like 22 hours or something like that. It was pretty exciting to watch, and it's still online on that URL if you want to check it out, in the version that died, unfortunately. I made a game called Blossom with my friend Christopher Hedborg. This was for a documentary series called Super Game Jam, and that was published by Devolver Digital, and they kind of just wanted to put 2 people in the same room and have them make a game in 48 hours. And they filmed it, and it was terrible, super high pressure, cameras everywhere, and we couldn't really embrace the creative freedom that we needed. There was always like interviews in between, and still we ended up with this cute-looking game that's about a gardener in space that just floats around on his spaceship/home planet, which is dying all the time. And you kind of have to collect these seeds and feed it using those. That's on Steam, by the way, if you want to check it out, Super Game Jam. I've been doing illustrations for a while now, for clients, for game jams, for myself, for school. This was for Nordic Game Jam. It's a game called Super Stress Out. And it's about being in uncomfortable situations, just wanting to get some room, which is a pretty important thing to do. I started out trying to figure out 3D. This was my first attempt in Blender. I don't recommend it. It's terrible. I did some art in Hotline Miami 2. So there are these VHS covers for the level selection. I made a couple of those, and I'm pretty proud of that. Cool game, good soundtrack. This was for a Twine game that I made with William Pugh called The Temple of No. Great story. This is for a game / project called Statistics, and it's just another attempt at making like weird stuff in 3D. This is all Unity, and I'm learning that right now, so it's exciting. I also just draw stuff with pens and paper. It's important to draw on paper because you don't get to erase your mistakes. You don't get to go back in history. And that's an important lesson in life. Eventually, I got to work with William Pugh. It was like this email message popped up. I remember the moment exactly. And the subject line just said, "I'm at the Stanley Parable, let's work together forever." And I was like, okay, I'm down. So he made that game that was pretty successful and famous. And my tip as an artist is just to put your work out there, because all of those things I've shown you just now, they're all on my Tumblr. And if you get really lucky and you share your work, then people see it. And if you're really lucky, some of them might like it. And if you're super extra mega lucky, then someone retweets it in the very best moment in time, and William sees it, and he starts working with you forever. And that's just really pleasant. This is the first thing we made in Unity together 2 years ago. And there's a lot of this in Dr. Langeskov still, but this is just a really bad version of what we did in the end. And in the meantime, we really learned how to get better at stuff, make it nicer. And I just want to show you a comparison between this and Dr. Langeskov. So here's a couple of visual impressions of that.
You don't have to be alarmed. It's not a real jungle. It's just a game. Right, it's so safe. We'd usually have someone else do this, but they started striking right after one of them got. Well, that's not. I shouldn't have. Just pull the lever and let's say introduce the tiger to the level. Here's what you need to do. The player's going to come down the corridor and call the lift. And once the doors open and they get inside, they're going to press the down button. When that happens, all you have to do is pull the lever on this side. This lift. The door's just over there. You're doing so great. There's really not far to go. Okay, so what we did there, it turns out, was the wrong thing. Could you press 9 and then 4 and then 1? I think we restarted it. It's alright, there's a page in the manual.
That's a cool title slide sound effect I made. Wasn't that quirky and funny and colorful? It's a really cool game, I think. I'm very, very happy with it. It's free on Steam, but trading cards are pretty expensive, so don't get into that. People talk about it using good words. People played it, a lot of them. Some of them like it. They called it funny, they called it story-rich, they called it first person. All of this is accurate and good. This is the concept of the game. Imagine your favorite game, and imagine what's going on backstage of it. We wanted to pleasantly disappoint players by locking them out of the game that they like and that they want to play, because it's being played by someone else at the same time. Which means you go backstage, all the staff left, but playing requires props and lights and stuff like that. So there's no one else to help but you, so you just do that. It's a big farce, and it's a big paradox, because we're turning the consumer of the product or player into a worker on the game, which is weird, and no one did that before, really. And in a kind of meta-commentary, at the same time, we explain what it feels like and what the experiences are in making a game, and I think that worked pretty well. These are the people who worked on Dr. Langeskov, as seen through the filter of my pen. We've got William Pugh, who designed and directed it. He's in the back of the room. Hey, dude. We've got Jack Takid, who worked on Castles in the Sky, who wrote the entire thing. There's Sean O'Dowd, who did the programming and engine work. And there's me. I did the illustration and the art direction. We usually switch teams around a bit based on the project, and we have different collaborators on everything. But this is the Langeskov setup, pretty much. We started out making a thing for the Game Jam 7-day FPS, and we kind of had this idea of making a game that's just about a really terrible machine. There were a lot of parallels to Langeskov, in that you kind of talk to someone. We had this classic Stanley Parable narrator system in there, and it was just about using these weird twisted rooms and machinery in it that kind of kept the game going and gated the player. And things like that. Some of this is still in the game as well. We've got these levers and some of the textures were used for that. So that's always nice. You can go back and steal your own stuff. But let's talk about how we actually made Dr. Langeskov. Cool sound effect. So what we used is Photoshop. That's what I live and breathe every day. We used Unity, where we put it all together. It was usually just 2D sprites and textures that we slapped on geometry. Using Pro Builder, which is a really cool and efficient system for grid-based level design. So shout out Pro Builder. We used Slack and Google Docs for team communication and documentation. And those are just really valuable for team purposes. We use Skype a lot. And that's good because it kind of emulates being in the same room, and it gives you a chance to look someone in the face and really actively scream at them if you need to. It's synchronous communication. You don't have to read emails. You don't have to read briefings that much. You can do actual meetings that feel like meetings. And you can explain things by holding up pens into the camera. Let's look at a picture of a big black room. This is pretty boring. This is what it looks like in the game, and I'm pretty sad this edition never made it into the game. But I just want to explain the process of paint overs using this example. Because what I imagined this to look like initially was this. This never got turned into a reality, and maybe it's actually better to have this version that ended up in the game because it kind of evokes more player imagination and stuff. But it's just a really cool idea to take engine screenshots and draw over them. This is what we did in here. You can kind of see some of the messier and worse looking stuff is what I drew. That's the Skype overlay because this is a lot of the time it happened in real time, just drawing over screenshots. And that's what it looks like in the game now, which is pretty similar and speaks for the quality of paint over maybe. Here's another cool example. This is a sketch like many that William makes, and they're just quick MS Paint things that try to illustrate an idea and stuff like that. This is my treatment of it, and this is what it actually looks like in the game, which is pretty cool to see this kind of progression, I think. Paint overs can be pretty weird. This is an example for a thing that we never finished, but that's also just a really cool mix of 2D stuff on top of engine things. And yeah, hopefully we kind of achieved a certain style or art direction with this that is interesting. And I want to talk a bit about how that happened. So what I like to do is I collect things everywhere, be it on Tumblr, Pinterest, or a messy big folder on my desktop. I just want to surround myself with inspiration and references and really soak them up and take them and do something interesting with them. I'm pretty short on time already, so I'm just going to skip through some of my inspirations in this thing. There's John Kay, who created Ren and Stimpy, and what we see is kind of the bold and violent and colorful and saturated stuff that's in some of the art of Dr. Langeskov. I was really inspired by the textures of Scott Wills, who does background paintings for Samurai Jack, another cool cartoon. And we've got Brendan Chung of Blender Games fan, who is really good at color coding games and reducing them using limitations, being efficient and precise with them. And it just creates this magnificent style that carries through all the games. You can also find inspiration in other places, such as a cool font or a cool film. As you may have noticed, we're using this exact same font in Dr. Langeskov. It's called Archer, and it's just really good. But let's talk about what style actually is and where it comes from. Because I think that people don't necessarily understand is that style is just the sum and the amalgamation of everything you put in the game. This could be anything, like textures, the feel of them. Yeah. So the thing is that a lot of stuff is focused on story and content, and you can feel if something's off in the story, and you can kind of explain why that is. You can't really do that with visuals, which is a problem. One sec. Yeah, so it's hard to tell how something is off or bad when it comes to visuals. And it takes you out of the experience, and that's bad, but we want instead the good. The problem is that using Unity and stuff like that, you have infinite power, no limitations at all. The trend is high poly, realistic stuff, and our approach was more like being reduced and not shying away from coming up with weird aesthetic rules. The key to this is coherence, which just means that all elements in your game tie together under a certain set of rules, and everything obeys that. So the rules we came up with were that, for example, every single texture is made from scratch and hand-drawn. The universe is designed for practicality and efficiency, which means that while we do cool things with spaces and colors, it's all based around the fact that this building needs to work, and it just needs to keep the place running at all times. We use bold colors and outlines all the time, and we had kind of achieved this 90s Saturday morning cartoon style, and we kind of wanted to mix reality with this weird computer machine thing without being too matrixy about it. So yeah, one thing I get asked about a lot is, what brush do you use? I use my own brushes, and you can never have them, but these are a couple of good places to find them and alter them. So I just scanned like felt pen and like watercolor things with a scanner and turned them into brushes, so that works. Here's a cool example of how that could look in-game or in textures. This is how I actually assemble my art. There's always a base shape, and using clipping masks and adjustment layers, I just add more detail to it to make it look a bit roughened up. This happened in all the textures in Dr. Langeskov. So yeah, that's my art tip. Use those things. It's a non-destructive process, and it's really good. Let's look at a couple of textures in Dr. Langeskov. So a cool thing about this is level of detail. On the left one, it's pretty much something that's only trivial to the game, and there's not really any important information in it. So it can be pretty low level of detail. You don't have to put a lot of time into it. But the thing on the right is something that's in a key scene, and that's super important. And it kind of has to work from far away, which is made possible by these big shapes. But there's also higher level of detail things, such as the sticker thing, unregistered trial version, which is just an offhand joke that we could put in there. Level of detail is super important. It was super fun to make these boxes that actually tell a bit of story. There's something tying into another thing in there. And for these bricks, I thought, okay, players are going to look at these a lot, so we should probably make sure that while they're spending time with it, they're not getting super boring. So what we did, we just made like 8 or 9 variations of these, and that way we could get around doing that. A cool tip is to look at textures in other games. I looked at Team Fortress 2 textures a lot, learning this, and this is actually the first time I did textures altogether, so that's really cool. This is how we make rooms, but how do we make an entire universe? Jingle. Good ideas have to come in high density. That's really important. You can only make so much game content, and you need to make sure that it's packed with lots of secrets and interesting stuff for people to find. But also, you have to be really careful about allocating time. I'm really bad at allocating time in this talk. You have to focus on things with big world-building payoff, and we try to do that in many different ways. And one of them is that, for example, we couldn't just create or model characters, which is why we let the world tell the story for us. Because a believable world is populated by people who leave their mark on it. And there's so many things in Langeskov that kind of do this thing, and a massive part of that is all these notes. These are all hand-drawn. Some of these are taken from my actual sketchbooks. Some of them just have instructions to the player or elaborate on the story a bit more. There's cool examples like Langeskov guards who are supposed to say, "Hey you, I see you." This is a resignation letter by one of the people who worked in the facility and then quit their jobs. And that's the thing we've already seen a couple of slides ago. There's cool secrets that tie into puzzles. There's actual feedback sheets that we passed out to people. And this is actual honest feedback that we just put in the game as a texture. And there's cool things that are maybe just silly jokes, silly doodles that were lying around that we just all put in. A cool tip is to either create things that are modular and reusable, or create very specific things that heighten the level of detail and are totally unique in every single way. And one example for that is the posters for fake games that we put in Langeskov. The first one obviously is the one you're supposed to play, but there's other things. This kind of implies that many different things are going on in this world, and we actually managed to kind of get some game audio for one of them, and it's a weird thing. Play the game twice and you'll know what's up. There's signage everywhere that kind of explains things that are going on. You look at this thing and you get that there's a tiger in it. It's just, you don't need a tiger model. Maybe you need a couple sound effects for it, and that's it. This is how you make a box that has a tiger in it. There's other signage everywhere that was really fun to make, because you can just come up with cool text for it and kind of gate the player, move the player around, and explain stuff to them that they otherwise wouldn't get. There's lots of signage, such as this stuff, that's implying there's a strike situation going on. There's a trailer storyboard that is for the fake game and not the actual game. But this is just a lot of the stuff I made to make sure that this world is populated a bit more. And we made these cool soda drinks, and one of them is a Dota drink, and I don't know how Valve greenlighted that, but it worked. There's a little Vlambeer reference as well. Stuff that we made beyond the game is also really important, because there was stuff like an online puzzle, screenshots with exclusive art that's nowhere else, backstory padding. I'll show some of this. This is a website that we made that kind of functioned as a backdoor into the thing and explained why there's a big glitch going on. It had exclusive art only, so this was all made in addition to Langeskov, and of course we could reuse some of that, which is really smart and efficient of us. Here's a fake company shipping weird theater props and tools to the facility, and no one online really knew what's up with that. You get into this weird admin panel, and there's all these messages floating around that kind of explain what these characters are thinking and feeling. And there was a big subreddit made only for the games we make, and they kind of found out what this is all about, and we're always one step ahead of it, really. And we kind of had to create the puzzle. There's the classic image of the car rolling down the hill, and you're also building it at the same time. But it all worked out really well, and as you can see by our email signups on a newsletter at crowscrows.com, that all of this stuff really pays off, and mentioning the website a lot. Question: how do I get good at this? Good example for really brilliant art. The most important thing is to iterate. Make things many times. Rather do 4 or 5 quick doodles than to spend a lot of time on one of them. That's what helps me. Just pick the best one afterwards. Play to your strengths, and that could be that you're just really good at making stuff quick, or making really slow, or only using one brush or something like that. Embrace rules and limitations. This is what I meant with this whole style and aesthetics thing, that you kind of are aware of all the rules and things that go into a game and shape the universe. Make many small things fast. This goes for whole projects, such as making this game in just a month and then spending a tiny bit of time on polish. Don't work on a game for 6 years, please. It's really bad. Make bad things, unless they take 6 years. It's a good opportunity to kind of just vent and let all your weird ideas out. And also finish things. And that already kind of brings me to the end of this talk. I hope this kind of explained some of the influences and the methods that we apply to this game. And if anyone has any questions, I think we can do maybe one quick one. One question about all of this. You in the back, sir.
What's the party plans for tonight?
Oh, good question. I missed all of yesterday's. I'm super tired. I'll just probably grab some coffee and sleep for like 5 years, and then we can see what's up. Thank you so much for coming. I hope this was at least a little bit informative. Again, that's my Twitter account, and big love to UBM GDC, and there's some further reading on all of this, and we'll be in touch, yeah?